Welcome to The Secrets of Success. By following the proven techniques of the guests who appear on this series, you'll learn that even successful people run into detours and failures, and how you can apply their success techniques to change your life.
You're now listening to the most unique show on radio, the show dedicated to making you a success. Want to achieve more for yourself and others? Just be a happy leader, says our guest, CHO Tia Graham. Tia, thanks for being with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Now, Tia, I used your title, CHO, so you have to explain to our audience, what is that?
Chief Happiness Officer, one of the best titles on the planet.
Now, is that, I hope I don't offend you, but is that a real title? We keep hearing today CFO, CEO for a company. Is a Chief Happiness Officer or CHO a real title, or is that just an introduction to your book?
Right. So there are internal Chief Happiness Officers within companies. It is new and growing. Deloitte, for example, has a Chief Wellbeing Officer. So that, that they are in companies, law firms, et cetera. But it's, as I said, it's new. And then also there are external Chief Happiness Officers. So I'm a certified Chief Happiness Officer. I got certified in Denmark several years ago. And so I do consulting and training and speaking with companies as a external expert as well.
So just like a CPA, certified public accountant, this is a legitimate title. It's not just a cute title that you've given yourself, and companies have it because it's so important today. Am I correct?
Yes, exactly. And another, you make me think of another title that's growing is Chief Purpose Officer. I'm seeing more of those in companies as well.
This, you said before the show we could do 2 or 3 shows, and I think we might stretch it to 4 or 5 once we get into these other topics. Now, having read your book, Be a Happy Leader, I have to tell you, and you are very open about it, your life did not seem to start off as someone who's going to be in the position you're in. Would you tell us, kind of give us a brief start to your life and a little bit about your background?
Sure, absolutely. So if you can't tell from my accent, I grew up in Canada. I've also lived in the United States and Europe. But once I finished high school, I was quite lost, uninspired, and I liked to have a lot of fun. My friends and I would go out dancing 5 nights a week. We liked to, fun was our biggest priority. And so I didn't do the typical path where you go straight, into university, then corporate job, et cetera. I actually dropped out after my first semester of university and took several years of just waitressing and partying. And after time, I realized this is not my long-term plan, and really discovered my passion, which was the travel industry. So I actually moved from Canada, went to the University of Hawaii. And after I graduated, I started a 14-year career in the luxury hotel industry, leading sales and marketing teams. So it didn't start off that way.
So you have the corporate background and maybe the wild child background a little bit to know all aspects of the situation. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
How would you define happiness to start off? Is there a definition that you use in the world of the CHO, Chief Happiness Officer, CHO?
Yes. Well, there are many definitions of happiness around the world. Within the CHO community, the definition is committing to a life of joy and purpose. And it's also about accepting the peaks and valleys of life. There's a lot of myths and misconceptions. And so happiness is not just about the joy and the positive sides of life. It's also about the painful sides. So
to be fair and to our audience, you're not one of those people who's just perpetually happy and, oh, it's raining today, I love it. Or it's snowing today, I love it. You're telling us it's going to be some ups, some downs, and you just want to make it better for all of us and more enjoyable.
Yes. So the science of happiness, positive psychology, focuses on how you can create more joy and positivity in your life, but it's also about having a healthy relationship and about creating resilience for when there are challenges and those inevitable times in life where you get knocked down. And the science of happiness and neuroscience is even more important when you are going through challenging periods, because what it does is it shortens the amount of time that you are going to be down, and it also decreases how far you're going to go down. We all start off with a baseline. And so it's about all aspects of life.
Maybe it's just me, but I find, and I'm a television person, I enjoy watching TV, but I don't think I've put the news on for years. And if by mistake I click onto a channel, I don't care if it's a foreign language station that I don't even know what they're saying. I don't want to, I almost feel bad. I think I do feel bad every time I listen to the news. I feel worse than I started out. Is it just me, or is your profession becoming more and more necessary?
So because the news is now 24/7 and is in our pockets and we can never escape it, unfortunately, and then there's social media on top of that. Unfortunately, the news is more prevalent and invasive into our lives. So that is fantastic that you don't watch the news. The research shows that people who watch the news in the morning on television feel 31% more negative for the rest of the day. And who needs that? So I tell all of my clients, read the news, stay informed, but never watch it on television. Unfortunately, our brains have a negativity bias. And so we have to work extra hard to not let all of that negativity ruin our days.
Now, I guess what they'd call in my era the $64,000 question, happiness and success, which comes first? Do we have to be successful to be happy, make that $1 million or get that promotion to regional manager?
So all of the research shows that the equation is happiness before success. There was actually just a recent study that was published a couple months ago. It was a 5-year study with over 1 million people in the military at all different levels. And the research showed drastically that the happier people within the military were the ones who got promotions faster, received more accolades, and were way more successful. And there are also studies just like this in the corporate world as well. So by focusing on your happiness and your well-being, whether you're a student or in a company or an entrepreneur, the research shows that you will be more successful.
Now, you have a section on myths about happiness, and one of these I think would surprise a lot of people. It surprised me a bit. If we spend money on others, we actually feel happier?
Yes. So giving and being generous, and happy people are more generous and altruistic, but there's, again, multiple studies that show that if you spend money on others, as opposed to buying something for yourself, you are going to make them happy. And by making them happy, you're going to make yourself happier.
Now, what about making more money? I think most of us feel no matter what we're making, it could be from $10,000 a year to $500,000 or $1 million, but we could always use another 8 or 10% or maybe 50% or even more.
Yes.
Is that realistic, or do you have some information you can pass on to us about making money?
Yes. So being able to focus on happiness is a privilege. For people that are just trying to get their basic needs met, or I can't help but think about, refugees, of course. If you're just trying to get your basic needs met, money is very, very important. But what the research shows is when people are at a certain level, and this varies depending on where you live in the world, once you're at a certain level, well, you are paying your bills and you have a little disposable income to maybe go to the movies, etc. That any more money, it does bring us a little bit more happiness, but way smaller than people would think. Now, the research shows that wealthy people are happier than poor people. But what happens is this phenomenon called the hedonic treadmill. So let's say one of the listeners is making $95,000 a year and they think, oh my gosh, if I was making 110, I would be so much happier. Well, when you do get that bonus or that raise, you have this high for 3 or 4 months, but then you go back to your baseline, your resting level of happiness. And so there's nothing wrong with focusing and wanting to be more successful, but you cannot put all your eggs in that basket thinking that's what's going to make me happier.
You've already given us a ton of information, Tia, but at this point in the show, I want to stop for a second and let our audience know, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan. Our guest today is Tia Graham, Graham. Her book is Be a Happy Leader. And Tia, would you tell us where we can get the book and if there's a website where we can learn more?
Yes, so you can get the book on any of the channels, whether it's Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, bookshop.org, your local bookstore, of course. And it's a paperback, ebook, and audiobook for those that like to listen. And all of my information is on my website, arriveathappy.com.
And we'll ask you that a few more times during the show. And again, to our audience, as I always do, I'm going to recommend you write that down, because tomorrow you're going to be talking about this show and say, what was that guest's name? What was the name of the book? What was the website? And really, this can be a life changer. The book, Be a Happy Leader, it's a fun read. It really can change your life. And who doesn't want to be happier? If you're telling us you don't want to be happier, I think it's time to switch to Dr. Phil and find out why. But for the rest of us, we're going to stick with Tia Graham and find out how we can be happier. Now, Tia, if I've taken good notes on your book, somewhere along the way, you were working with a life coach.
Yes.
And if I have it in the right order, you said to that life coach, I want to start a happiness business or a happiness company. Did I get that right?
Yes. On my first call with her, I said, I've always had this idea to create a happiness company.
And did she start laughing, or did she say, why don't we start with a pizzeria first, or a bicycle shop or something like that?
She said, a happiness company. What do you mean? What is that? And then I described my dreams, my vision, and how I would make money, of course, because I wasn't thinking of a nonprofit. And once I communicated all of that to her, she said, wow, that sounds like a really good business idea.
And I thought you were going to say she was going to ask to invest in it and buy stock in your business. Because again, like most people, if you said that to me, I would think it sounds like a lot of fun and it's great, but how do you turn that into money? And perhaps we should look at something more typical to start off with rather than go 100% in the other direction. So you had a lot of guts. You were honest with her. You had a life coach, and you brought it to fruition, which is even more impressive. Now, again, if I took good notes, you actually went and you researched happiness, and you went to something, and I guess most of us probably never heard of this, the World Happiness Summit. Tell us about that.
Yes, I actually just got back from it. It's at the University of Miami. So the World Happiness Summit it's in its 5th year. And what it is, it's a 3-day event plus a huge community, but the event is 3 days at the University of Miami with the leading researchers on positive psychology, happiness at work, and bringing happiness to communities as well. So there are approximately 35 to 40 speakers. I want to say maybe 15,000 people attend in person and online. And it's the latest research on what humans can do to thrive in their personal life and in their career.
Was that where you became a certified chief happiness officer, or did I lose track of the timeline?
Yes, no. So I became a certified chief happiness officer in Denmark. There's a company there that's been doing corporate happiness work for 2 decades. Scandinavia is actually light years ahead of North America in terms of happiness at work. At the World Happiness Summit is where I met the Harvard professor, Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar, and I got multiple certifications from him in happiness studies in positive psychology.
Now, I'm just wondering, once they certify you, is it like a baptism? Do they take you to the local lake and pour some ice water over you? Or do you have to complete courses, or is it a study procedure, or how does that work?
Yeah, so there are courses. No dipping in the lake. At the one in Copenhagen, we all had a glass of champagne at the end. That was a celebration. But yes, at the end of the one in Denmark, you need to do a whole presentation. And then with Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar, there are exams. You're basically as you're going through the courses.
And you said to us before the show, and I want our audience, if someone is just tuning in, major businesses, this is a real thing. This is not just a cute title that you might want to give yourself, like a tire company might call themselves Dr. Tire or Professor Tire. This is real, and major accounting firms and business firms are hiring people such as yourself because they want a happy worker, and we're going to show you some of the reasons that you've listed in your book. Again, if I took good notes, happiness leads to success, healthy relationships, social ability, creativity, and energy. Did I get that correct?
Yes, and more. So Dr. Barbara Fredrickson, who's the leading researcher on positive emotions, has proven that, and I will say many others, that your brain works differently when it's positive and happy. So you are more creative and innovative. Happy salespeople will sell more. This is actually some of Sean Acor's research. Team members are more engaged. There's higher customer happiness and satisfaction and loyalty. Teamwork, you name it. I mean, this is directly ties to the bottom line results of an organization. Everyone's talking about the Great Resignation. Happy people do not leave companies; they stay. And a leader who is engaged and happy will not be having people leave for competitors for more money. And so it's very important for companies.
And I'm thinking just common sense. Do we ever want to leave something that we're really enjoying or happy? Like we'll say the time went too quickly. Is the game over, the party over, the event, whatever it is, or the vacation? And here you're telling us that we can establish this at work, which makes all the sense in the world. Having gone through your book, I know that if we set this up correctly and have someone like yourself, or even just read the book and get a few good ideas, it can be a much more pleasant journey. And by that, I mean our journey at a particular company, working 10 years or 40 years for the same employer, if that's still possible today. Everything can be a lot better. So why not enjoy it while we're there and really get the most out of it?
Yes, absolutely.
And you mentioned something too in the book. People leave bosses, not organizations. Can you expound on that a little bit?
Yes. So your direct boss has the biggest impact on if you stay or leave an organization. And so the way that you are treated, the way that this person writes emails to you, all of the different touch points are vital for someone thriving or someone being disengaged and just collecting a paycheck. So the opportunity for leaders, and one of the main reasons why I wrote this book is, unfortunately, the research shows that 2/3 of managers in the United States are disengaged. They're not even that checked in. So imagine the unhappiness trickling down the corporate ladder, corporations. And so it's, leaders are trained on how to drive results, but how to create connected relationships are equally or even more important.
And I just want to repeat what you just said. 2/3 of our managers, 2 out of every 3, and I know that our regular listeners know that many of our guests have said that managers are not engaged. As you said, they've checked out. They're routinely doing it or methodically, but either they're looking for another job or they're putting in their days till retirement or vacation or something like that. And to go back to another statistic, which even if you don't want to be happy, don't know who would fit into that category, but even if you don't, you mentioned that in sales, I think, what was it? The percentages go anywhere from 13 to 37%?
Happy people will sell approximately 30% more than someone who's neutral or feeling negative.
And in the sales world, that's an enormous number. I mean, that's like a 350, 400 hitter in baseball, or the person who's hitting 50 or 60 home runs. If you can up your sales total, especially the good salespeople who are already doing a great job, if they can up it anywhere from 10 to almost 40%. So even if you don't want to be a happy person, if you just want that business to run well and see the stock go up and watch your money and your piggy bank actually burst, Tia has given you a lot of good reasons. Tia, again, before we go further, I'd like our audience to know that you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan. Our guest today is Tia Graham, Graham. The book is Be a Happy Leader. And Tia, again, we're going to ask you to tell us where we can get the book and the website.
Yes, so you can get the book on any of the major book retailers or your local bookstore. And my website is arriveathappy.com, and you can grab the book there as well.
And if I'm correct, that website, arriveathappy.com, the Arrive at Happy part, that is your business that you wanted to establish and you spoke to the coach about at that time. Am I right?
Yes, exactly.
Working toward goals. Many of us work very hard toward a goal. we set something at the end of the line. We want to get our CPA, our law degree, even if it's an internal promotion to be the assistant principal, the regional manager, the district manager. Does that help us toward happiness to achieve things, or would we rather just sit and watch the ocean all day?
I mean, watching the ocean sounds pretty good. But no, setting goals can absolutely connect to your happiness and increase your happiness as long as they are self-concordant goals. So many people set goals because their family thinks they should do that, or their community, cultural, they think, oh, I should be a lawyer because that is so prestigious in my family. But if they don't want to do that themselves, if that doesn't align with their values and who they are, that's not going to make them happy. So goals are fantastic. And the journey towards achieving goals, you don't have to wait till you achieve it to actually reap the benefits, the psychological and emotional benefits. But the goals need to be aligned with you. They can't be someone else's goals for you.
Tia, can we talk a little more about that? Because I think a lot of us have gone to school, perhaps taken courses because our parents said to us, I want you to be an accountant like me, or a pharmacist, or a math teacher. And, these are good careers. There's certainly nothing wrong with it. No. It's great aspirations in terms of a parent, but it might not match when you talk about alignment. So can you explain that a little better for our audience?
Yes, absolutely. And, these a lot aren't obvious, So for young people, or for people, for me, I changed careers after 15 years of working in hotels, taking the time to really get to know yourself. This is about self-discovery, and you can do this with someone else, or you can do this on your own, but get really clear on what inspires you, what motivates you, what are you passionate about? How do you want to support humanity or the world, and everyone doesn't have to live like Mother Teresa, right? And for some people listening, that might be a Wall Street banker or a lawyer, or it might not, And so, unfortunately, a lot of people are rushed into career paths, or they are influenced by other people or by what they think they should do because society tells them they should do that. So my advice is to slow down and take the time to really figure out what you want to do, because then the journey and achieving the goals will bring a lot of meaning and purpose and happiness.
Now, Tia, I know from going through your book, you were a dynamo. I mean, you were working long days. And here you are in Hawaii, where most of us would say that's a good reason to leave early. You have beautiful weather, you have the beach, you have that dream scenario that people are looking at. You were in the hospitality industry, if I'm correct, and doing very well and moving up and being that kind of person that people had you fast-tracked, etc. And here you said, I think I want to be a chief happiness officer. Did they send you for a psychiatric examination at that point?
For me, what changed, my life circumstances changed a lot. And I love the hotel industry. I love it. I mean, the experiences that I've had because of that industry, I'm so thankful. And I say I was a happy workaholic. I worked all the time and I loved it. What changed for me was I had 2 young children, and I did not want to be in the office until 9:30 p.m. I wanted to see my kids, and I still wanted to be successful. And so, that was a big motivator for me. But yes, there were people in the hotel industry that said, what? You're going to do what? But now those companies are hiring me to come work for their hotel companies. So it all comes around.
And it's obvious through the book that you were that happy doing what you're doing. And of course, our audience can't see you as I can right now as we're talking in this interview, but you're beaming. And you're obviously someone who really enjoys what they're doing. They're doing their live stream. They're getting the maximum out of this. You mentioned that the number one predictor of happiness is the human connection. Is that realistic today? Because I see even, I'm going to say, older people who you wouldn't expect to be walking around looking at their cell phone, almost tripping over it. People being very brief in conversations where we used to talk more. not having the time for things like this. Everything seems to be a rush. Even if they're not per se working, they don't even get out of the car. They'll get on a 10-car line at Wendy's or McDonald's. Are we passing this by without knowing it?
Oh, gosh. So the answer is a resounding yes, that human connection is the number one predictor of happiness. And unfortunately, technology and modern day living is making this more and more challenging. So for everyone listening, you need to be even more intentional about how you move through your work days and your evenings and weekends, because spending time with people that you care about and who care about you, your friends, your family members, and your colleagues that you're close with, spending time where you are actually connecting and people are not looking at their phones while they're talking, is the biggest driver of happiness. And happiness connects to your health and your success and many other positive effects as well. We need to be more intentional about how we use and how we stop using technology so that we can connect more with the humans around us. And even like you said, in a grocery store, of talking to someone next to you and, like actually talking to the people around you in your community is what this world needs now. I mean, so much.
I really think that's definitely a truism. And again, if you're going for happiness, here we have the expert. She's certified. This is what she does for businesses. And as you said before the show, we really should do a 2 or 3 or 4-parter on this, because there's so much information, and I'm looking at the clock and I'm saying, unfortunately, I have to wrap things up. But I want our audience to know who we're talking to today. It's Tia Graham, Graham. She's the author of a book, Be a Happy Leader. And your company is?
Arrive at Happy.
So you can tell that she's into this. She knows her stuff. Tia, once again, please tell us the website where we can get more information.
ArriveAtHappy.com.
Do yourself a favor, get hold of Be a Happy Leader, go to ArriveAtHappy.com and see if it's time to make some changes in your life. Tia, thanks so much for being with us today. Greatly appreciated.
Thank you for having me.
We'd like to let our audience know that you've been listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan, asking you to please join us again next week at the same time when we will continue our journey to success.